When your world is falling apart, remember this. Some of the most powerful truths in life are also the simplest, but we forget them when we need them most. There's an ancient Buddhist story that reveals two timeless truths, and once you hear them, you'll never see pain, fear, or failure the same way again. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to rise when life knocks you down, no matter how hard it hits. Picture this. A small village nestled between rolling hills where families had lived peacefully for generations. The rice fields stretched like green carpets under the morning sun. Children's laughter echoed through narrow streets, and elders shared wisdom under the shade of ancient trees. But then, disaster struck like lightning from a clear sky. First came the drought. Month after month, the sky remained a cruel, cloudless blue. The rice fields turned brown, then black. Wells that had never failed began to run dry. The villagers watched their life's work wither before their eyes. Then came the floods. When the rains finally arrived, they came with a vengeance. Rivers burst their banks, washing away homes, livestock, and hope itself. What the drought hadn't destroyed, the floods claimed mercilessly. As if nature's fury wasn't enough, bandits descended upon the weakened village. They took what little remained, grain stores, precious family heirlooms, and the villagers' sense of safety. The people gathered in the village center, their faces etched with despair. Children cried from hunger. Mothers held empty rice bowls. Fathers stared at the ruins of their dreams. "We are cursed," whispered an old farmer, his weathered hands trembling. "The gods have abandoned us. There is no hope left." It was at this moment of complete despair that a Buddhist monk appeared on the village path. His saffron robes seemed to glow against the gray devastation. Despite having nothing but a simple bowl and the clothes on his back, his eyes held a peace that seemed impossible in such circumstances. The villagers approached him cautiously. "Holy man," said the village elder, "you should not stay here. This place is cursed. Nothing but suffering awaits anyone who remains." The monk smiled gently. "I have traveled through many lands," he said, his voice calm as still water. "I have seen empires rise and fall, witnessed great fortunes turn to dust, and watched the mighty become humble. Yet everywhere I go, I carry with me two truths that have never failed me. These truths have the power to transform any darkness into light." The villagers gathered closer. In their desperation, they were willing to listen to anyone who spoke of hope. "The first truth," the monk began, settling himself on a simple stone, "is that nothing in this world is permanent. Everything changes, everything passes." A young mother, holding her crying infant, shook her head. "But our suffering feels endless. How can this pass when we have lost everything?" The monk's eyes sparkled with compassion. "Let me tell you about the mighty oak tree that once stood in my monastery's garden. For 100 years, it grew tall and strong. Its branches provided shade for countless monks. Its roots ran deep into the earth. Everyone believed it would stand forever. One winter, a terrible storm came. The wind howled like a demon, and the tree that had weathered a century of seasons finally fell. The younger monks wept, saying the beauty of our garden was destroyed forever. But do you know what happened next? Where the great oak fell, its massive trunk became home to hundreds of small creatures. Its decomposing wood enriched the soil. And in the spring, where its roots had been, dozens of new saplings began to grow. What seemed like an ending was actually a beginning." The monk gestured to the devastated fields around them. "Your current pain is real. Your losses are genuine. But just as winter always gives way to spring, just as night always surrenders to dawn, this difficult time will pass. The question is not whether it will pass, it will. The question is, what will you become as you move through it?" He pointed to a tiny green shoot pushing up through a crack in the drought-hardened earth. "See how life finds a way. Even in the harshest conditions, nature begins again. You too have this power within you." An old woman spoke up, her voice heavy with grief. "But we have lost our homes, our crops, our savings. How do we begin again with nothing?" "Ah," the monk smiled. "This brings me to a story of a wealthy merchant I once knew. He had built a vast trading empire, ships on every sea, warehouses in every port, gold enough to buy kingdoms. He was known throughout the land for his riches. One day, a massive fire swept through the port city where he kept his main warehouse. In a single night, he lost everything: his ships, his goods, his fortune. He sat among the ashes, believing his life was over. But here's what he discovered. Though he had lost his possessions, he still had his knowledge of trade, his relationships with people, his ability to work. Within 5 years, he had rebuilt his business, and it became even greater than before. Why? Because he realized that his true wealth was never in his possessions. It was in his mind, his heart, and his willingness to begin again. The monk stood and walked among the villagers. You say you have nothing, but look around you. You have your hands to work, your minds to think, your hearts to love. You have each other. You have the experience of surviving this disaster, which makes you stronger than you were before. Most importantly, you have something that no flood, drought, or bandit can ever steal: your capacity to choose how you respond to what happens to you. This brings me to the second truth, the monk continued, his voice growing stronger. While you cannot always control what happens to you, you always control how you respond. And your response determines everything that follows. A young man, his face scarred from trying to save his burning home, stood up angrily. How can you say that? We didn't choose any of this. The drought, the floods, the bandits. None of it was our choice. You are absolutely right, the monk nodded. You did not choose these disasters. But now, in this moment, you face the most important choice of your life. You can choose to remain victims of what happened, or you can choose to become the authors of what happens next. The monk's voice took on the rhythm of an ancient storytelling tradition. Long ago, in a distant kingdom, there lived 2 brothers. They were born into poverty, raised by parents who struggled every day just to survive. When they were young men, their parents died, leaving them with nothing but debts and despair. The first brother looked at his circumstances and said, "Life has been unfair to me. I was born poor, raised in hardship, and left with nothing. There is no point in trying." He spent his days bitter and angry, blaming the world for his suffering. He remained poor and miserable until the end of his days. The second brother looked at the exact same circumstances and said, "I have seen what poverty does to people. I have experienced suffering firsthand. I know what it feels like to have nothing. This knowledge makes me uniquely qualified to help others who face the same struggles." He dedicated his life to serving the poor and became known throughout the kingdom for his wisdom and compassion. Eventually, he became an advisor to the king himself. Same beginning, same challenges, 2 completely different endings. The only difference was how they chose to respond. The monk paused, letting the story sink in. Right now, you are at that same crossroads. You can choose the path of the first brother, remaining focused on what was done to you, letting your circumstances define your future. Or you can choose the path of the second brother, using your experience as the foundation for something greater. A middle-aged farmer raised his hand. But how do we do that? How do we respond well when everything feels hopeless? Excellent question, the monk smiled. Let me share with you the 3 pillars of powerful response. First, accept what is, without wasting energy on what could have been. Every moment you spend wishing things were different is a moment stolen from creating what could be. The drought happened. The floods came. The bandits struck. These are facts. Fighting facts is like trying to argue with the sunrise. It accomplishes nothing and exhausts you completely. Second, look for the lesson in every loss. I once knew a potter whose entire workshop burned down, destroying years of work. Instead of despair, he said, "Now I can rebuild with everything I've learned. My new workshop will be better than the old one because I know what mistakes to avoid." And it was. Sometimes we must lose our good to discover our great. Third, focus your energy on what you can influence, not on what you cannot. You cannot control the weather, but you can control how you prepare for it. You cannot control bandits, but you can control how your community organizes for protection. You cannot control yesterday, but you have complete authority over today. The monk picked up a handful of the parched earth and let it run through his fingers. This soil looks dead, doesn't it? But beneath the surface, millions of seeds wait for the right conditions to grow. You are like this soil. What looks like devastation on the surface is actually preparation for new growth. Something shifted in the villagers as they listened. The despair in their eyes began to give way to something else, not quite hope yet, but possibility. The young mother who had first questioned the monk stood up. "If what you say is true, then maybe we can rebuild. Not the same village we lost, but something new, something better." "Yes," the monk exclaimed, his joy evident. "Now you begin to see. You have the opportunity to create a village designed with everything you've learned. You can build homes that better withstand floods. You can develop farming methods that survive droughts. You can organize systems of mutual support that protect against bandits. Your suffering is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of your wisdom." One by one, the villagers began to speak up with ideas. The old farmer suggested new irrigation techniques he had heard about. The blacksmith proposed building community storage for emergency supplies. The women organized childcare so everyone could work on rebuilding. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, the village hummed with energy it hadn't felt in months. The next morning, the villagers woke to find the monk preparing to leave. "Please stay," the village elder pleaded. "Help us rebuild. We need your wisdom." The monk shouldered his simple traveling bag. "You no longer need me," he said with a warm smile. "You have everything you need right here." He pointed to his heart, then to theirs. "Remember the two truths. This too shall pass, and your response determines your future. Carry these with you, and no storm will ever defeat you." As the monk walked away, his voice carried back to them on the morning breeze. "In every ending lives a new beginning. In every loss lies a hidden gift. In every challenge waits an opportunity to become more than you ever thought possible." These two truths have the power to transform your life, starting right now. When you're facing your darkest hour, remember, this too shall pass, and your response is everything. If this story touched your heart, hit that subscribe button. We share life-changing wisdom like this every week. Give this video a thumbs up if it reminded you of your own strength. And drop a comment below, sharing how you'll apply these truths in your own life. Your story matters, and your comeback starts today.